Okay, greetings everyone. Welcome to this special edition of the full moon lunar alchemy session as we explore the archetype of the scientist and gene key 62. My name is John Rhodes, and with me is Bella Crystal to shed all of her wisdom from the gene keys and human design. We spent a little bit of time discussing the function of the gene keys in our understanding for context, but I would love to just dive into our discussion around the influence of the full moon. How is this archetype showing up in our experience, and how can we move easily, smoothly, and in a direction of deeper integration through this frequency bandwidth that begins with the shadow of intellect, moves to the city of impeccability, and is the pathway of the gift of precision. So obviously all of these different terms have some specific meaning. Bella, I'm wondering if you could just break down in an approachable way, what do we need to understand about the scientist? And does it vary at all from our standard ideas about our modern day scientists? What are we looking at in this archetype, and what is important about it?
I feel in the context of today, it's important to understand that we're in a full moon. So we have the two programming partners looking at each other. And I actually want to start with showing everybody the transit chart for today. And actually it has both the red and the black, but where we are right now is in the black. So where we have the sun in the 62 and we have the earth and the moon in the 61. So they are programming partners, Capricorn, Cancer. And I feel like every time that we have two archetypes that are both here looking at each other, the whole programming partner, the opposition is very important to understand. So when we speak about the scientist, we are in the more logical understanding of things that can become very fixed in that sense in the low frequency. And when we are in the 61, we're more in the abstract, we could say. So kind of from the mentalism, and then like really rigid science would be the two parts in the shadow frequency. So then your question was, what about the scientist in a higher frequency? I feel you're saying. To feel into that, I really want to bring in the circuitry and where it is in the body graph. So the 62 is a throat gate. It's in the logical circuitry, and it's here to take in.
Bella, can you show the image of that? Do you have an image of that? Because some.
Let's see how I can get an image of that. So let's go to the 64 doors, and then we know it's gonna. It's kind of small. So here you see it's a throat gate, and it's part of the logical circuitry that we have here and then here. And it's taking the details from the 17 and it's translating them. So it's structuring, we could say, to stay with the essence. And that's really what I feel it's important. I know last year, John, we were speaking about the heart surgeon, and that was Tim Brainard that actually I spoke to today. For a very long time we haven't spoken, or we didn't speak, we left really long voice messages to each other. He has the 62. I can't remember where it is, but it's important in his gene key chart. I have the 62 as well. And I remember 2 years ago or 3 years ago when we started the 64 doors, he was saying, why isn't it the heart surgeon? And then somehow it seemed easier to call it the scientist. But I actually feel like it could be the heart surgeon. It's like honing in on what's really important, to stay with the essential in a way. And that's where it takes in everything, all the details. And then it goes through that process of translation to really kind of just speak the essential that everybody can understand. And I feel like that is super important in these times of distraction, when things are getting translated through mass media, for example. There is so much chatter, and there are like so much of different sides. So I don't feel like we are even getting to the essence. And that would be the scientists really genius of to do that.
I don't know if perhaps I just missed a portion of what you shared. So the thing that stood out to me about the scientist is this kind of exploration of the polarities in this archetype between the masculine form of intellect and the feminine form of sort of heart perception, if you will. And I wonder if we might go into that a little bit, about how do these energies function through us in this archetype, and how can we understand it a little bit more clearly in terms of the spectrum of the gene keys, and we'll be able to then relate it to the impact of the full moon.
Yeah, I would say in the gene keys, the way we understand the hexagrams, the pathway, the gift frequency is always the heart. So it would definitely say the higher frequency is including the heart, whereas the lower frequency is only including the mind. I actually, again, would like to go back to the 61 and the 62. They're looking at each other in the wheel, because I do also feel that the 61 comes in with a more abstract kind of creative way of maybe more like the ideology of feeling something, whereas the scientist more has that scientific underpinning. And at the same time, I think both of them, they're going to need to have, it's kind of hologenetic, I guess. So you look at just the 62 and you want to have yin and yang, and you look at the 61 and you want to have yin and yang. And I feel like that's the whole I Ching. All the hexagrams are a combination. And even when we speak about the 1 and the 2, there are only yin line or only yang lines in the how the hexagrams are built up of 6 lines, yin or yang. Still, they're kind of, the one can't exist without the 2. So there's definitely always this dance between yin and yang. And in all archetypes, I feel like at the gift frequency, there is a healthy balance of that. And in a human life as well. And I would, my way of seeing it is wholeness is not only heart and mind. It's really starts from body, and then emotions and mind and spirit. And really what we're doing is that we want the spirit to come down into the body where the soul lives and meet there. And that is the sacred union that I feel is like in each one of us and between us and in the world and everywhere. And that's the dance of yin and yang in a higher frequency that we are awakening to.
Yeah, so we have these polarities to play with through our experience of the world, whether it's the expansive yang or the receptive yin. And I'm gonna see if I can launch from my other computer here and just get on there, because it seems that
Oh, this is funny. I'm reading the chat in the meantime. We're kind of waking you up, guys, so that you cannot just sit there and get everything kind of served on a silver platter.
Oh man, I certainly did not predict the sort of, let's see what I can do here, the sort of up and downness of how this is accessing.
I can, in the meantime, speak a little bit to what was written in the chat. So we did speak about the 62, but today we have the Earth and the Moon in the 61, and it's different, like you were saying in the chat, it's collective circuitry, logic in the 62, and then we have individual circuitry in the 61. So there we have something that is empowering the individual. It's not about explaining to anyone. It's kind of that spontaneous knowing or spontaneous expression, the empowerment of the one. So they are, in that sense, they're different too. And you can see how somehow, again, the 61 in that way is more creative. It just knows, it just has the inspiration. It's just connected to the inner truth or that great mystery, which I feel that this new moon is bringing into us. Because it's looking from Capricorn, like it's looking out. And somehow the other interesting thing here is, let me just share, if you want to do something where you need to come off and on, I can share the actual chart again, because there's something interesting.
I'll try that.
So you see, it's a little bit strange when we look at the meaning of the hexagram, that the 61 that is more abstract and feminine is actually in Capricorn, which is that kind of outwards stability and responsibility. And then we have Cancer, which is the water sign, the emotional sign, that's the 62. So again, here, I would say we always have both. We have the feminine, the masculine, the emotional, the mind. It's like, it's in all, we cannot separate it. It's impossible. The other thing I felt was interesting, so I made the chart in terms of the gene keys. So here you have the human design chart. If we look at the whole, sometimes we only look at the black side, what's activated right now. But for purposes of what Richard Rudd does to create a gene key profile, we have to use the date of today. And then we are going to have both some of the spheres that are from the design and some that are from the personality. So I mean, here, I know, Jeremy, you're on the call and you're always speaking about the 30. I think it's your radiance. So that's the vocation. That's the fuel for this full moon. It's a super moon. So what can be kind of more powerful than having the 30 as the fuel for the moon? And then at the same time, kind of how we relate through this full moon is through the storm. And the storm very much in reciprocity or in mirroring of the other. So somehow me and John here, we are kind of in the middle of the storm, and there is not the same kind of reciprocity as usual, I would say, because we are not like really even speaking to each other. I don't even know if John is here anymore. And then isn't it interesting too that we have the pearl, which is the 17, and we were just saying that the 17 is actually creating that channel. So the pearl is Jupiter. Jupiter right now is making a connection to the sun in the 62. That's very powerful. There are two masculine archetypes, the sun and Jupiter, connecting through this channel of organization. So there would be a really good opportunity for us now to actually look at the details, zoom in and out, and organize things, and actually even, I would say, express the things in their essence. Definitely super important. You have an electromagnetic channel between the life's work and the pearl, and that's the channel that you can see here. I also feel like there are a lot of more like emotional keys here. So we have the nurturing of the 27, the nurturing or the mother in the 37, and then we were also speaking about the 36. So quite emotional nurturing. This is not emotional, but it's still that mothering. So it kind of becomes emotional in its way. And then the 12 is pointing to the emotional. So there is definitely something to look at here of our emotional needs, is what I feel. And, do I feel mirrored in this call right now or not? And like, you kind of go back to your life and you're like, okay, is there like, what's the interference in communication here? And how does that make me feel? Am I in the eye of the storm and okay? Or am I like pulled out? I would definitely say that. And then the challenge could be that fundamentalism, I'm going to mute John for a little while. Could be that fundamentalism of the 61, and actually not even knowing, okay, what's my inner knowing, what's my inner truth, what's the great mystery, where am I, is it the same thing? That's really the 61. It's the dilemma, and not the dilemma, I would say the psychosis in a way of why, which why, and asking questions instead of kind of just either sinking into our inner knowing or going out to the great mystery and knowing and trusting that whichever we do, that's the answer, that's the knowing, that's the pulse that we're here to be informed by. And maybe the last things that I want to just a little bit go into is the fear of failure in the 32. It's a double fear of failure. 32, fear of failure, third line, all about failure. So what is it that doesn't allow you to be in core stability that has to do with your fear of not making it? How is that not allowing you to ground, not allowing you to be in your body? And something here that we are asked to learn is about both the cycles of life and the celebration of those cycles. So how can we let go of the expectation of what this call that everybody can come to is going to be like? How can we play third line with it, kind of detached of what it really is, and understand that this is something cool that can come out of it? And that's also how I feel like we are giving the fuel to the vocation so that we can serve the sun, we can serve the collective here, and we can also see in a clear perspective in the pearl. And then there is something where, again, we're asked to dare to surrender in those times that are kind of scary, I guess. And surrender has to do with coming back to the heart of the fourth line. So the resolve to our exhaustion comes through the relaxation, comes through the heart, comes through the trust. And I guess it's somehow in that it's also important to have the discrimination of what it is that we're looking at, what it is that we're connecting to.
So, can you hear me, Bella?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So I think I worked this out a little bit. I'm back. And I think I can get us into speaker view, I hope.
You want me to stop sharing?
That would be great.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so just like to sum that up, I would say this is a theme that is in a way peaking right now with this full moon. There can be things in what I mentioned that you're like, oh yeah, that came to its culmination. Yeah, that's definitely there. So it's a moment where you can kind of, really tap into that and then kind of let it go. I would say it's those themes have kind of built from the new moon 2 weeks ago till this full moon, and now it's time to let them go, or to let them show their truth to you.
Yeah, so one of the things that I sometimes notice, I find myself, when I look at this incredible complexity, it's so easy to get lost in the names and the forms and all of these things. And as we kind of learn to use these systems, there's this process that we go through of learning the names, learning the numbers of the gene keys, learning how this relates to that, and all of these different relationships that there's an establishment of. And for the most part, when through that process of learning, it's almost like this scientist process of like, okay, I have to learn all the things about myself. And then, I have to learn all the things about all the things. And then I have to learn about all the things about how all of the things relate to myself. And so often I feel that all of that awareness, all of that knowledge, essentially, it both informs us in a expansive way, And it also prevents us from reaching the core of any central aspect of any of the gene keys, which is in a human body, from my perspective, is to somehow get underneath the basis of fear that we function from in a body that's going to die. And I wonder if you could put this idea of precision, Bella, in that type of context of, like, you know, how do we understand precision from this perspective that we all have essentially one fear, the fear of death, or the fear of the void or nothingness. How do we understand precision from moving into and integrating that fear into our larger experience?
Yeah, I go back to the process of coming back to the essence of things, like that's somehow, if we think about mortality, if we think about a body that isn't forever, I would love to focus my life on what's essential. I would like to be able to kind of structure, to see and to come to that. And it feels like as well with the 61 that the inspiration, when we kind of clear out and there's almost the essential that's there, then when the inspiration comes in, again, what's created is so much more clean and also essential and also aligned with who we are. So I feel that the precision, again, it's the heart surgeon that knows exactly what to go in and do. It doesn't go around and do everything everywhere in the heart and the chambers of the heart. It goes in where it's needed. And I feel that's what the 62 can do. It takes in everything that is the heart and everything, all the functions and everything. And then it focuses where it needs to focus, and it's able to translate it so that it makes sense. It's really about sense making in the logic circuitry, and in a way it's not even for ourselves, it's for the future. So somehow, if you live in a body that is like final or that's not forever, it's like, how can your life make sense for the future or add to the future? Because the collective circuitry wants to find a pattern that works and create a better future for the collective.
I'd love to look at the elements that make up this hexagram briefly before we start to move in the direction of elemental quantum transmission so that we can look at it. In the I Ching, there are forms of hexagrams which relate to 8 different aspects of nature. And the aspects for this particular energy are thunder over mountain. And when I think about being on the mountain and experiencing a thunderstorm, that's a very, very dangerous place to be. And most people who climb mountains know that if there's lightning nearby, it's time to get down. It's time to run away. And this idea of the electricity of lightning within the context of thunder. Without lightning, there is no such thing as thunder. Thunder is just the sound emanation of this spontaneous discharge of energy that's rebalancing things in our atmosphere and the ions that are moving between the earth and the sky. And when I think about sound being an emanation of that discharge, then it brings me back to this concept of the archetype of the creative, the spark, which relates to gene key 1. And what relates to the manifestation of consciousness into form is just kind of like a lightning bolt coming down from the sky and striking a mountain. But what happens to a mountain when it's struck by lightning? Does anything happen to it at all? I mean, it's completely still. And when we consider the frequencies of the shadow moving into a gift, we're moving from lower into higher and higher frequencies. And eventually we transcend the spectrum altogether into the acidic frequencies, which all have these extraordinarily, high frequency level words attached, like peace or truth, these concepts that we can think of as being absolute concepts in humanity. And one of those concepts is stillness, which comes from the mountain, the 52. And when I think about consciousness penetrating my form, which is where we were at in our last Lunar Alchemy session, here's consciousness moving into form. And what does that do? It causes an expansion of awareness. What's happening in my body as consciousness or a lightning bolt of consciousness penetrates my form? There's vibrations of emanation that happen throughout me, triggering my reactive behaviors, triggering my traumas, the pain from the past, triggering the unresolved emotional expressions, the unresolved relationships, triggering the environment that we're in to move into other forms of shadow frequency, conflict or agitation. And so when I think about this concept of thunder on the mountain, it's this idea that these emanations of the penetration of consciousness into form is absorbed and received in absolute stillness at the acidic frequency anyways. And so when I'm thinking about precision from this perspective, it has to do with how precisely can I allow the emanations of the consciousness penetrating my form to resonate with the vibrations at the center of my heart through my choices, my expressions, and my activities that I'm going to do in the world. So that's how I'm looking at these elements. And Bella, I'd be curious about your perspective, because you always add a lovely addition to this elemental perspective that kind of increases our ability to expand this awareness.
I liked that image that I saw when you spoke about the thunder coming into the mountain, and in the middle of the mountain, that's where the heart lives, because the mountain for me it symbolizes the form, and you know how I'm all about the form and the body temple, and that's where the heart lives, that's where the soul lives. And here we can see that on the top, the thunder comes in right into the form, and almost like the 61 in a way, the inspiration comes in, and then it's translated 62 into here. I mean, I know but that's the image that I get in front of me. And then I also like what you were saying. So here we have a braid, and here I know people asked last week, they're like, oh, it's interesting. It's the same words as in the Gene Keys, but what does that mean? So if you're familiar with the Gene Keys, you're going to see that this is stress, restraint, and stillness, that's the keywords, the frequency band for the 52. And then when you go agitation, initiative, and awakening, that's the keywords for the 51. So we have a braid here. When we look at the 62, we can say it's a braid made up of the 51, thunder over thunder, and the 52, mountain over mountain. So there are 8 hexagrams that are made up of 2 of the same trigram, 2 of the same element, we could say. And that, so that 51 and the 52 are 2 of these. So here we see the low frequency of the 62. Intellect is agitated stress. Gift frequency, precision is initiative with restraint, which is interesting. I think this is perfect for a heart surgeon. Wouldn't we have that? Initiative to go in there, but have a restraint and not just like destroy the heart, you know, like needing that precision. And then I feel like this is what you were speaking to right now, John. Impeccability is awakening in stillness. Wow, that for me, that one is super powerful. And I don't know who's here in the inner circle, but I was just speaking about medicine, like plant medicine. And there is something where the longer I'm on the journey of plant medicine, and I have been very much out of that journey since 2018. What I notice is that in the beginning with, for example, ayahuasca, it's often like kind of pushing through. And even when you try other things, you're like, oh, I'm going to do enough so I can feel something. And really, really what I feel more and more, and I guess in a way that could be the more feminine way of yielding. I definitely feel like the lower, like the medicine is already in there, and it's like almost like a homeopathic dosage that allows me to awaken in stillness instead of kind of pushing through to the other side of something. So impeccability is awakening in stillness. For me, that is incredibly beautiful. And like just kind of closing my eyes and feeling into what that even is kind of orgasmic for me. So, and then here, I just want to read that the spiritual transmission channels through the mindful stillness and heartfelt gratitude. And that again, I see that coming in the form, in the heart, as I read that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that reflection to bring in plant medicine. And I believe it also relates to some of the conversations held around Kundalini and how that impacts our consciousness and the raising of the Kundalini through our system. And essentially what we're talking about is this lightning bolt of consciousness, whether it's plant medicine or it's Kundalini energy from within the body. There's a lightning bolt of consciousness that is moving through our form. And we often experience some form of resistance to that movement when it's extraordinarily intense. Essentially, what it means is that we're not yet capable of receiving that level of awakening in stillness. And so, as that vibration, the emanation, the thunder moves through our system, our challenge is to integrate that vibration in a way that we do not lose the focus of our own sense of well-being or our own sense of self. No matter what that experience happens to be, painful, blissful, doesn't really matter. And to some extent, we could look at that as applying to life overall. As we evolve through this form, our evolution serves the purpose of allowing that penetration of consciousness, that thunder, those emanations, and our ability to integrate that consciousness is about finding the place of stillness within, so that the awakening, the thunder of the awakening can reverberate out through us into the world around us, therefore impacting the collective in the unique way that we are specifically built to do that, to fulfill that function of individual destiny. And when we look at that as an occurrence, then when we talk about, okay, so how can we receive an energetic transmission into one of the elements of the body? We're working with 4 elements: earth, air, water, and fire. How can we receive a transmission of this kind of potential for human experience into our bodies, one of these elements, in a way that isn't forcing us to deviate from our own individual path, to honor every variation that we choose along this pathway, understanding that the stillness of consciousness is in a state of, we could call it perfection. And it doesn't necessarily even, it's not necessarily the goal of our experience to have that in us. We're here to explore what it means to be consciousness in form. So how can we facilitate that in the best possible way? So Bella, before we go into that transmission, I wonder if you have any final thoughts on this rather unusual exploration that we've had of this gene key 62, the scientist, and even our discussion and all of the challenges that I was experiencing through technology here.
Yeah, what comes to mind is just going back to human design and knowing that we're not all designed to express into the world the way that the scientist does. This is very, like I said, precise, logic, future oriented. And when we look at the throat center, we can see how many different ways of expression there are. So there is this logical, there is something more abstract way of sensing into things, which is not logical. And then we have the kind of individual spontaneous way of expressing. We also have a kind of tribal way that has to do with the tribe and the survival of the tribe, not really like the collective in the future. So just knowing when you look at the throat gate, and you can go to the 64 doors and really go into each one of these archetypes and just realize that we're not all meant to express the same. And that's the beauty of being human. And I feel that sometimes the 62 can actually be a beautiful contrast to what's the natural way for you to express. And somehow we have learned that we need to make sense, we need to be logical, we need to translate into the essence. Like I've learned that. I have the 62 in my north node on the design side, so kind of like, and I have the 16 and the 31, so I have a lot of logical, and I guess that somehow I'm conditioned also to use that as I speak, and even the way that I'm making sense of these systems. But I actually am really inspired by people that have the 12 and the 45 and the 35 on that more adventurous kind of hungry way of living and of expressing. So I would look into that and use the 64 doors, the free website, to get to know the archetypes if you don't already are familiar with them.
Awesome. So we will now move into the quantum elemental transmission. If you haven't experienced one of these before, essentially it is a frequency form of sound and light, which really goes hand in hand with what we were discussing today from the elements. And as that sound and light is delivered, it passes through the center of the earth, where it becomes calibrated to your individual system, as each of our systems is directly connected with the center of this planet. And so any of the frequencies that you will receive through the transmission are essentially tools for your greatest expanded self to harmonize with the highest frequency path, if that is what is best for you. And if that is not serving the purpose that you are here to serve, then any of the tools that you receive from this frequency package will be utilized in the best possible way for you to achieve that individual destiny. So you don't really need to do anything, and you don't need to worry about any activity that occurs in your mind, sensations in your body, or movements of emotion that may occur. My only request is that as you receive this frequency, that you open yourself to allowing your experience to unfold. And as that occurs, you may find that you have a deep sensation of experience in your body. You may find that you have a deep awareness arise in your mind. You may find that you have a deep movement of emotion in your body. Or absolutely the opposite of all of those things may occur for you. So that's what I'd like to share. And if you're new to Lunar Alchemy and have never attended before, we do offer a membership where you can attend our free discussions weekly and receive those quantum elemental transmissions on a weekly basis. Those are recorded, and then you can download those for your own use in the future through membership. Following tomorrow, you'll receive an email follow-up from being a part of this special full moon lunar alchemy session that will give you a link to be able to join that membership if you decide it's right for you. So that being said, the last thing I'll say is that the full moon moves the waters, well, the moon itself moves the waters of the planet. And a full moon is a full reflection of the light of the sun. And within the alchemical form of the soul, the spirit, and the body, the full moon gives us a full reflection of any aspects of self which are yet to be integrated into our awareness. And that is why the potency of this particular day and this transmission is amplified. So let's go ahead and move into the transmission. All you need to do is just quiet your body. You may close your eyes and take a deep breath. Tune into any subtle vibrations that are happening in your body. You may be feeling for sensing the movement of blood through your system, or movements of your metabolism. If you like, just focus on the movement of your breath. And just notice any sensations. As we begin this frequency transmission, I will speak a command which encodes and connects the transmission frequency itself to sound and language. And as that transmission is received into your system, there will be a process that is engaged, to allow for the next steps of your evolution in this moment to take place in the best possible way. It is commanded in the presence of divine love and by the golden liquid realms and alchemical powers that the earthen elemental acoustic resonance code be used for each person here to activate the highest capacity potentials of all conductive minerals and tissues of the body to vibrate freely, clearing any impedance in harmony with the current of their individuated spark of consciousness, allowing all emanations of evolution to fully integrate the fluctuations of perception, supporting and amplifying their awareness on the path of individual destiny in resonance with their higher self now. Ta Asia into Doe. The frequency of sound and light is now delivered. And all earth elements of the body are moving into resonant harmony with the offering. As we go within, we may become aware of the desire to experience stillness. If we but look a little deeper, beneath that desire lies the fear of coming face to face with the emanations of our consciousness in form. This transmission will not move you, but will assist you to more deeply embrace the deepest function of your inner being. As you experience your body in this life. Remember your breath. The transmission is now over 60% completed. The vibratory nature of the minerals of your body serve as bioelectric conductors, allowing for the expansion of consciousness into form. As that process is cleared of the resistance to the movement, the conductivity of electrical current in your body, your awareness has the possibility to expand in new ways. You're now over 90% complete. It is commanded in the presence of divine love that new golden streams of Siddhic consciousness are integrated in the best possible way for each person here from their higher self now. Ta Asia Intadoe. You may imagine receiving golden liquid light streaming into the crown of your head from the essence of your own greatest being, integrating the frequencies that you have received and bringing to you any additional energies that you require at this time. When you're ready, and only when you feel ready to fully return to your body, begin to wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, and bring your awareness to movement, to your presence. You may remain in the meditative state as long as you desire, but as you're ready, lightly open your eyes and come on back to the room. Thank you, Nicole. As I mentioned, there will be a link to the replay sent out if you desire to experience this transmission again or take the ride through the incredible variety of frequency that was a part of this discussion. You are welcome to use that link. I simply recommend that you download it for your own use because it will be coming from my Zoom account. And I will be taking that video down from my Zoom account in a couple of weeks. So please just get to that over the next week if you desire to download this to experience again. And Bella had to move on to her next appointment and work, but I am here for a few minutes. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to look at that and discuss with you. I want to appreciate each of you for showing up, bringing your presence and your attention despite the incredible fluctuation that occurred from the emanations of this discussion. Thank you, Siobhan. Oh, Bella's still here. Yay, Bella's still here. Yes, Jordan. So our friends who are pets, our cats and our dogs, they're very, very sensitive to the transmission of higher frequencies. So if you sit in meditation and you allow yourself to rise in frequency through a process of relaxation, sometimes your pets will notice. And sometimes they'll come around because they resonate with these higher frequencies. All right. Well, if you do have any further questions, oh, excellent. Patty has a question. When do we read about different doors? Does one visit this site every day? That's a great question, Patty. So when we impose or superimpose rather the wheel of the 64 doors on top of the astrological hub, or the movement of the sun or of the earth around the sun, that happens on an annual process. So the duration of the sun's movement through each door and gate lasts for close to 6 days. If you take 64 and divide it into 365, it's 5 and change. So you can see the calendar for the movements of that, Patty, by going to the website, the Gene Keys or the Pulse. Let me bring that up and I'll put it in the chat for you. That way you can access that. And on Unlock Your Design, Bella's posted a link there for you. If you would like to have one. So that should get you to the calendar there. And you can also explore all of the archetypes that Bella mentioned at the 64 doors. So Bella, maybe you can add that link there. Yes, JLo, the process of integrating progressive transmissions results in your frequency, the resonance of your inner essence, progressively releasing frequencies that you have absorbed through the process of life and the karmic wheel that are not in full resonance with the destiny of your inner being. And so occasionally there can be experiences from these transmissions of purging, whether that be physical, emotional, or mental processes. It can even move into the realm of relationship. It really depends on every individual. Not to scare anybody and think that you're going to have to go drop your guts today. But I do recommend that everyone please drink plenty of water for the next couple of days, as water is the medium in our bodies through which we integrate higher frequency. So, again, I want to thank each of you for being present, and we will look forward to hosting you in another free discussion. We do that every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And for those who desire to simply attend the discussions, you can join our mailing list to receive those. I will include that link to sign up to receive the links to our free discussions in future communication with you by email. That should go out by tomorrow. And if you desire to receive the progressive transmissions, you simply click on the link for the membership with Lunar Alchemy and join us that way. I'm sending loving presence to your heart from mine, each of you individually, to each of you watching the replay and experiencing these transmissions through the quantum field. That means that the transmissions are not dependent upon location or timing. So you can benefit from these as if you were present today. Oh, beautiful, Deborah. You asked for the removal of impedance by name. So, Deborah, I'll just share with you that word, and you may be aware how important the specific frequencies of different words are in the gene keys. Impedance relates to the resistance of bioconductivity of ions in our body to be able to deliver electrical impulses. And of course, that relates to each of the layers of our bodies, no matter how you're looking at that. If you want to look at gene key 22 and explore the 7 bodies of the Corpus Christi, you can follow that process of impedance and the releasing of it all the way up through each of those 7 bodies. So here we are on 713, looking at releasing the impedance from our 7 bodies for the integration of our unique consciousness and destiny. That relates specifically to the 13, one of the most mystical numbers, which we covered on a recent Lunar Alchemy session. Essentially, it equates to the central hub surrounded by 12. So, yeah, Nicole, Australia, you got to jump the gun, but it's all in there. We'll look forward to seeing each of you in a future discussion. We would love to welcome more of you into membership and deliver these transmissions to you on a weekly basis. Again, if the timing of our meetings doesn't work out for you, in the membership, you always have access to the replays, which you can download and receive in that manner. So we'll look forward to sharing more with you in the future. Again, sending loving presence to your heart from my heart. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we will look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. With all of that said, I'll say goodbye for now. Have a beautiful rest of your day, your evening, however that looks for you. And wake up renewed, ready to ride the waves of your own thunder and to embrace and integrate the movements that presents for you. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.